Alright, welcome to 8.2, Factoring the Greatest Common Factor. This is Miss Moreland. We're going to be starting with diamond problems every day pretty much, either in the video or in class, because I want to get you used to looking for numbers that multiply to the top and add to the bottom. So this one's a little tricky because a lot of you might think it's 4 and 6 because that adds to 10, but it doesn't multiply to a negative. The numbers you're looking for are actually 12 and 2. And if you want to add to a positive 10, you need to make the smaller number negative. So 12 and negative 2 will add to a negative 10, or positive 10, excuse me, and multiply to a negative 24. So now you're looking for two numbers, multiply to 14, add to 9. Really the only factors are 14 are 2 and 7, so that has to add to 9, and sure enough it does. Next ones you're looking for, multiply to a negative 20, add to a negative 8. So 10 and 2 multiply to 20, positive 20. If you want to add to a negative, you need to make the bigger number negative, because negative 10 plus 2 is going to be negative 8, and that will multiply to a negative number. Right? Now we're going to move on to remembering the distributive property. So remember the distributive property, you multiply it through, so you would get 6x minus 16. We're going to now go backwards and undo the distributive property. That's factoring. So you're going to say, okay, I'm going to pull a 2 out of here. What's left? That's a 3x and an 8. You divide each term by the 2 because it gets pulled out front, and you're left with that in the parentheses. So next thing you have to understand is when is it completely factored? So you notice you always want to look in your parentheses and see if they still have something in common, and I noticed that this one isn't completely factored, because I have an x and an x still, so really the person that was factoring should have pulled out a 2x, and then they're left with 3 minus 4. Now you won't be ever left with 3 minus 4 in parentheses, because yes, you can simplify that, but always check in your parentheses if there's anything still left in common, because that means it's not completely factored. So, to factor, you need to first find what they have in common, divide each term by that, and then always multiply to check your answer since you have good multiplying skills. So first I'm looking at a 2x squared and a 4x. The GCF is 2x. They have that in common. Remember, you pick the smaller exponent, and then 2 and 4, they're common numbers too. So you're going to divide each term by 2x. That's going to get pulled out front. So what times 2x has to give me a 2x squared? All I'm left with there is an x because the 2's are gone, and one of the x's are gone. So I'm just left with an x there. 4 divide 2, and I'm left with a 2, and the x's cancel. So I end up with 2x times x minus 2 inside parentheses. Last step is to multiply to check your answers. So when I multiply 2x times x, I get 2x squared. And when I multiply 2x times a negative 2, I get negative 4x. And that's me checking my answer here, so I factored this correctly. Alright, we're going to try one that's a little bit bigger, same idea. So find the greatest common factor of 8x cubed, 4x squared, and 16x. So I'm looking at the numbers first. 8, 4, 16. They're all divisible by 4. And the smallest power of x is x to the first, so that's what I'm going to pull out. That comes out front, and you can physically write divide by 4x under each one of these, or you can just say, well, what do I need if I take away a 4x? So if I take away a 4x from the first, I need a 2, because 4 times 2 is going to give me 8. And I took away 1x, so I'm left with x squared. The middle is already a 4, so I'm left with a 1. And I took away an x, so I'm just left with an x. And then 16 divided 4 is 4, and the x's cancel each other out. So I'm left with 2x squared minus x minus 4. Again, there's no reason you should get any of these wrong, because you can always check your answer by distributing. 4x times 2x should give me 8x cubed, and it does. 4x times negative 1x gives me a negative 4x to the second. And 4x times negative 4 gives me negative 16x. That matches my original answer, so I factored correctly. Oopsie, not a very straight line. Alright, we're going to try about 2 more here. Alright, so this one I have a negative 14x and a negative 12x. Since they're both negative, I'm going to pull out a negative. And 14 and 12 are both divisible by 2. And this is an x to the first, this is an x to the second, so I can only factor out an x. So I'm going to divide each term by negative 2x because that's what I divided out. Negative 14 divided 2 is 7, and then x's cancel each other out. 12 divided 2 is 6, and it's a positive because negative divided negative turns into a positive. And just one of the x's cancels, so I'm left with x. So there's my factored form of this if I factor out a negative 2x. Now remember, you should always check, so if you multiply, is negative 2x times 7 is negative 14x, and negative 2x times 6 is negative 12x. And I have two x's, so I get my x squared. I've checked my answer, I'm done. All right, pause the video and see if you can do this one on your own. So I have an 8x to the fourth, a 4x cubed, and a 2x squared. 8, 4, and 2 are all only divisible by 2. A fourth, a third, and a squared leaves me the smallest one I can pull out, which is x squared. So again, you can physically divide each term by 2x squared, or you can just see what you need. So if I have to take out a 2x squared, I need a 4 to get 8, and I need 2 more x's to get x to the fourth. If I take away a 2 here, I need a 2, and I took away 2 x's, so I'm just left with x to the first. And then 2x squared divided 2x squared is just a 1. Everything cancels, and when everything cancels, you just write 1 there. So this was what I think my factored form is if I take out 2x squared. Now remember to check inside parentheses here if there's anything left in common. 4, 2, and 1 have nothing in common. So check by distributing. 2x squared times 4x squared leaves me with 8x to the fourth. 2x squared times 2x leaves me with 4x to the third. And 2x squared times negative 1 is negative 2x squared. That matches my original answer, so I've done that one correctly. Alright, last two examples I'm going to run through really quickly. I want you to pause the video and try these on your own. And don't forget to check your answer. So 4x to the third, 2x squared, and 10. Notice I have an x squared or an x cubed and x squared and no x's, so that means I can't pull out any x's. But 4, 2, and 10 I can factor out a 2. So here I'm left with 2x to the third. This I'm just left with x squared, and this one I'm left with a 5. Now don't forget to check your answer. So 2 times 2x to the third is 4x to the third. 2 times x squared is just 2x squared. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. That matches my answer, so I'm done. This last one, 7 and 14, have 7 in common, so I'm going to factor out a 7. And x squared is the smallest power, so I'm going to factor out an x squared. So if I had to take away a 7 on the first one, I'm just left with 1. And I take away 2 x's, I'm left with x squared rather than x to the fourth. And then this one, if I take away a 7, I'm left with 2. If I take away an x squared, I don't have any x's left. So that's my factored form. Don't forget to check. So 7x squared times 1x squared is 7x to the fourth. 7x squared times 2 leaves me with 14x squared. I'm done. Make sure you always check your answer. So go ahead and try the on your own. Oopsie. And I will see you tomorrow.